What's up, YouTube? Tatiana, Jamie, anybody else out there?
No.
Adina's right here. She's so happy to be here today.
So it was joy of my life here.
Yeah. We're gonna do a special podcast called
Entitled?
Entitlement. Yeah, entitled people.
Jack legs.
Yes. Tonight is episode 40. We made it to 40. It's gonna be great. There is a chapter about freaking accountability.
There is, and he talked a little bit about accountability.
Yeah, and how, again, I think he defended it, but he definitely let you know that it was not something that he was gonna live by. So, are we good? You got your notes?
No,
It's okay.
yeah.
No.
I got you. Go
No,
ahead.
if for some reason it will not open Google.
Wait a minute. Is it Google? Because my episode won't open either. Hang on.
Alright,
Let me read.
Well, I restarted my computer, and then episode 39 opened. That was the most recent one I had, and now it won't do anything.
Episode 40. I got
So-
one. Have you restarted Chrome?
I don't use Chrome, I use Safari.
That's probably why.
Yes.
How many of you guys
I
use
just actually threw
freaking
Chrome in the trash.
or Safari?
Boom, in the trash.
Okay.
Because yeah.
What are you
whatever.
gonna do?
Go, I can, yeah.
Are you
yeah.
sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Can you read?
Positive.
I'm gonna restart it again. I just don't know why.
Ready? Yeah, let's not say that.
Tina
3,
Mercy.
2. What's up, guys? Mario for the Made for More Consulting Podcast. We're here on our second week of the book, Dichotomy of Leadership, Part 2, Balancing the Mission. Before we get started, this is episode 40. We made it to 40, everybody.
Whoop whoop.
Excited? Are you excited?
Yeah. We're so thrilled.
So thrilled, excited that we're on episode 40. It's gonna be great. We are, I didn't think we'd make it to 40. I mean, I guess I did, but I just didn't know if we, whatever. Anyways,
You have little faith.
I guess.
I mean, what do you think we're gonna make it to? Do you have a goal for us?
No, I just wanted, I'm just trying to put out content. And I guess I just didn't know if we were like, hey, I think we're done with content, so we're just gonna stop. But we're still going, so appreciate your help, Dina. Dina's on a roll tonight. She is all about entitlement this evening, so we could.
Pet peeve.
Yeah, entitlement is a pet peeve of Dina's. Week 2 of this book. It's a key book. We're gonna share I did share a video on Instagram about just what this book meant to Made for More and how I got started along with extreme ownership. So go back, check out week 39 last week if you haven't checked it out. You'll get to just catch up with us. So week 2 today. Keep in mind we're not reading the entire book.
That's right.
And if you haven't listened to our podcast at all, this is your first one, Adina, what should they do?
Always go back to episode 1 and listen. It kind of tells you the why behind Made for More.
Exactly, yeah. So
Let's
40.
go, yeah.
Let's do this. Chapter 5 in part 2, calling Balancing the Mission. Week 1 was more about people. This is more about the actual missions, the tasks at hand. So chapter 5 says, train hard, but train smart. And so one of the key, right out of the gate, one of the key quotes says, there is no growth in the comfort zone. Agree or disagree?
I agree with that. 100%. 100%. I actually just read something today that was talking about how oftentimes it's the people that push us out of our comfort zones are the people that we don't like in our lives. And so how to view those people differently, which was interesting because in my view of that is I like to be out of my comfort zone. I like to be pushed. And I forget that that's not a normal thing, that people naturally seek comfort.
So if you are listening and there's no growth, then you're probably pretty comfortable right now.
Just stay in your comfort zone.
Complacent.
Why not?
Yeah, so that's going to go along with this whole train hard, but train hard, but train smart. So he starts off the whole chapter with a guy called Big Walt, and they were in training, and Big Walt was the leader. And what he did was he said, hey, Big Walt, you're dead. let's see who steps up in this whole
Oh,
training. And no one stepped up. There was chaos. No one was making a call. The team was in a bad spot. They were in training, but they were getting killed. All those people, because no one knew what to do when this guy went down. Their main leader went down, and so they had to revive him. And they said, "Hey, you're back alive. Let's go." And what did he do? He just started making calls, and people were like, "Okay, here we go." Leadership, right? Leadership. But they were practicing, and that practice right there showed that most people were not stepping up.
Right, which I thought that was really interesting that they chose to have him come back alive to like teach a lesson. Because I was like, if this is real like training, he's not
dead.
coming back alive.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a part in this whole section that says if training was too easy and doesn't stretch the capabilities of participants, their improvement will be minimal. But if training overwhelms the team to a point where its participants can no longer function, it's greatly diminished the lessons they will learn from it. While training must make the team, especially the leaders, uncomfortable, it cannot be so overwhelming that it destroys morale, stifles growth, and implants a deficit attitude. So he's just saying it right there. He's saying that one of the reasons they brought Big Walt back to life was because of the fact that they didn't want to overwhelm the team and they wanted to demoralize them, even though they were all getting killed. They were like, okay, well, of course it's not in real life that he's going to be brought back to life, but we got to do something for the team because they're just getting their butts handed to them. So he brought him back to life, and he just talks about the balance. Or you can't be too hard on a team, and you can't let them be comfortable. So there has to be this dichotomy, this balance.
What I thought in that story, that once they brought Big Wolf back alive, the team saw that they all have a part in that.
Yeah.
That everybody has to be willing and be able to step up.
Yeah, and so when you go to trying to think, like your grandson plays soccer.
Yes.
So
Sweet boy.
yeah, I mean, I think of kids coaches that if they're always on their case, and these kids are just playing for fun. So if there's no dichotomy, you lean on the side of we're just gonna have fun, and they're just comfortable just playing around. It's frustrating as a parent. But then if you have the coach that is just like John Evans was telling us, Bang Bang Evans was telling us about his son's coach just was on their case because they were getting their butt kicked, they hadn't won a game, and they wanted to give up. His son wanted to give up. So what you see the balance of having fun, getting yelled at. There has to be a balance somewhere in there, especially as kids. And then it goes again with parenting is if you're, you can't be too hard and you can't allow them to be too comfortable. You gotta allow them, you gotta push them. So yeah, I just think about our kids in sports and again, us leading teams, remember that, there has to be a balance. So the principle of this whole chapter. So again, in this book, he writes a part of what's going on in his life, then he gives the principle, and then he applies it to business. So the principle, you'll read the principle.
The strategic goal of training must always be to build capable leaders at every level of the team. For this, hard training is essential, but if training is too hard, it will break the team and minimize learning and growth. So there must be balance. Train hard, but train smart.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to train hard and train smart, then you have to have a plan. You got to go into it with a plan. And one of the things I wrote down, and what he shares in the chapter is for this one, training was, he lists 3 things. So if you and I are going to start a business, I think, or we're going to lead a team, or we're leading in a nonprofit, whatever it is, he gives us 3 things, and he says training must, number 1, be realistic. And under realistic, we talk about role playing. So like just yesterday, I was with an organization that was doing interviews, and one guy had no experience in this industry, but he wants a new job, and he came to interview, and he got hired. But he said, "So how would y'all train?" I said, "It's a bunch of role playing. Like the store's not gonna be open. You got to show up early, and you got to train. You got to get out of your comfort zone, right? But we can't make it too difficult. So we got to put him in a tough spot with the customers. We got to have him bring out something to the customer and say, hey, that wasn't what I ordered, or whatever. Just role play, train." And then contingency plans. So this week was, number 1 is training must be realistic. So one of the conversations I was in this week was, we're not going to train for a contingency plan. Agree or disagree?
Contingency plan was like a new thought to me, because I don't think that a lot of businesses think like that. And I think it's easy in my mind. A contingency plan is usually if there's a crisis. Like, to me, like, a fire escape is a contingency plan. A gas leak, you have a contingency plan. Like, if something goes wrong, here's what we're gonna do. But I think in like every day, you know, a contingency plan if somebody doesn't show up, or if, you know, if the one oven goes down, you know, you do have to plan for some of those things. But I also think that if you're a good leader, that you can make those decisions and like pivot when you need to.
Yeah, so as the leader though, you have the big vision out front and you're not in the weeds, so the leader should be having that contingency plan going. Already got it, here's what we're gonna do, make the call. So number one, training must be realistic. Number two, training must focus on fundamentals. Do the basics well, and the foundation is fundamentals. So over and over and over again. We said this in Atomic Habits, is it's gonna get boring, but boring produces results sometimes. You just gotta stay consistent, because if you take those habits away and those fundamentals, then you start to go, hey, how do we do this again? Or how do you do that? Fundamentals, and do the basics very well and train on that. The last one is training must be repetitive. So just continuous. Continue to develop your team and plan it. And I think most companies will not succeed because they fail to plan their training, and they fail to train. Most people just hire someone to throw them in, and they expect them to get it, and their employees are left there going, is this how it really works here? No, there should be some training involved. So again, training must be repetitive, must focus on the fundamentals, and must be realistic. Did you watch the video of Deion Sanders that I posted?
I hate when you ask me
Probably
questions
not.
like that. No, I didn't watch it.
So
I should have read this ahead of time so I could have at least watched it on the way over here.
It was one of the most watched videos last week. I think on social media, so I just shared it on our social media. And he talks about practice, and he just says, in the culture today, we make deals at practice by going, hey, we make deals by saying, hey, you go soft, I'll go soft, or hey, don't go 100% because I don't want to go 100%. And he said, I practice to be the best ever. So when I stepped on the field during the game, it was my practice had purpose. And so at the end of the video, he ends by saying, I put purpose on for my practice. My practice had purpose. And again, it's to be ready when the time comes to excel at whatever you're doing. So training, practice, train how you play, train how you, if you're producing something, then you got to practice all the time the same way that you would do it, with the final results. So train hard, but train smart. Chapter 5.
Yes. On to chapter 6, aggressive but not reckless.
Aggressive but not reckless. So again, opening of the chapter, he's at war, and he's working with the army. So he's in the Navy, but he's working with the army. That's Jocko and Leif. They're in an intense situation with terrorists, and they found out that some of their friendlies are dressed as terrorists, and they knew they had to do something different because they could cause confusion there, and that people could get killed, and it could be friendly fire. And so his team made it through because they were aggressive and smart. They were aggressive, but they were also smart. And then here's what's interesting. I found it interesting that they're in Afghanistan, and they had to make a move, and the army came to them and said, "Hey, we've worked together before. Can you go after this high target with us?" And Jocko said, "Tell me what your plan is." And they go, "Well, here's the plan. And he went to Leif. Jocko didn't make the call. He went to Leif and his leaders, and he said, "Hey, what do y'all think?" And Leif said, "No, it's too tricky." And Jocko said, "But what about this and this?" He goes, "Man, I just think we're going to lose more lives." And so Jocko had to go back to the army and say, "We're not going to do this with you guys. Sorry, there's just too much at stake here. We're going to do something different." And they had to just say, "Hey, we're not going to do this." And it's just interesting that they're on the same team, but they told the army, "Hey, we can't help here." And it was, again, to be aggressive but not smart. But not reckless. So on the principle, you want to read the principle?
Problems aren't going to solve themselves. A leader must get aggressive and take action to solve and implement a solution. Being too passive and waiting for a solution to appear often enables a problem to escalate and get out of control, rather than passively waiting to be told what to do. Default aggressive leaders proactively seek out ways to further the strategic mission. It is also critical to balance aggression with careful thought and analysis to make sure that risks have been assessed and mitigated. To be overly aggressive without critical thinking is to be reckless.
That's really smart. Like the way they put it, just because I think when people think of aggressive, I think they think of yelling.
Well, and in this, he said that like yelling at your team is a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
It made me think about you talking about yelling at your kids last week.
That's it. I'm just telling you.
Because that's what we talked about,
Yeah.
is how like that,
So
it's like
if you
when you
take
don't
this
know
to life,
anything else to do.
you can be aggressive and not reckless with your kids. Okay, well, get down on their level and help them understand it. And it's so weird how that happens with kids or our family, the people closest to us, is I'm aggressive and reckless, not
Right.
aggressive and not reckless.
Well, the last part says, to be overly aggressive without critical thinking is reckless. And that's where I think it's the overly aggressive and that you don't realize how you're damaging
the
the relationship or just the overall mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then so if you're on a team and you're the leader and you're aggressive and you're not paying attention to how reckless you are, if there's it's that whole thing, if there's a fire and you panic, everybody's gonna panic. Michael Scott said, screw the women and children, I'm just running out. And so and then again on the boat, what was it called? The booze cruise.
Come on, like the Titanic.
He said the boat's sinking, and they asked him, hey, who do you save? And he said, I don't even know, the sales team or the boss or somebody, because he's the leader. And we're like, what about women and kids? He's like, no, whatever. So anyways, but if you are so wild and aggressive and you, let's say you get busy one day and there's all these customers in your store and you're running around and you're frantic and you're sweating and you're going, we got to turn out more customers. Your team is so on edge, they don't want to be around you.
Well, and I think that in listening to, and I actually listened to this chapter twice, but one of the things I really realized is that in the way he's using the word aggressive is like the opposite of passive.
Exactly.
And so a passive leader just sits there and waits to react to things, but an aggressive leader is proactively moving things forward.
Yeah, so when he says aggressive, it's not anger,
it's
not
right, and I think it's
yelling.
that word, the word that he chose.
Yeah.
I think we kind of have a different vision of it being like, somebody up there yelling and screaming and bossing everybody around. No, really, what he's saying is, make the right steps to move forward.
Yeah.
You should always be thinking ahead and moving ahead.
And if you're in the weeds as a leader, again, he's going back. We find ourselves talking about this over and over again. If you're the one doing everything, you're going to be aggressive and you're going to be reckless because you're doing all the work and your team's not doing anything and they're waiting for you to make a call. Aggressive means, let me look at the strategic plan, let me make some, and let my team move.
I would also think about how I've seen aggressive leaders that are like have a tunnel vision and they're just like bulldozing through everything and they're not bringing any of their team with them.
Yeah.
They're not explaining the why to the team. They're not building the team up and leading them. They're just going like, come with me or don't. And you know what? That will not last. Your organization will not last with that attitude.
Yeah, and your team's frustrated and they're going to go look for new jobs because their boss is so aggressive and is not looking forward that they go, where are we going? Like, I understand that we do this, but where are we going? What is our vision? So I think what I said is it's important to be aggressive, but aggressive is not yelling. It's not angry or too focused. It's not always serious, and it's not hot tempered, like a hothead. It's not about that. It's about making a call. And the other thing I thought about when you said about not being passive, I think some people, let's say you have to make a call. For some people, that makes them shut down. Like, I gotta make a call. Oh my gosh, and that's a form of passive. Passivity.
Some people that gives them life.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the people you need around you. So I think that most people will hear aggressive, like you said, and it's so far from the truth when you think about being hot-tempered, always serious, always angry, always yelling. That's not what we're talking about. Just make a call is what we're saying. So this is where we continue to practice the habits that brought us success. And he talks about, so if you're going to be aggressive and not reckless, don't fall into the disease of victory, where he says you get complacent because you've been winning some and you just start settling and you don't take the right risks and you settle and go, oh, we don't need to practice because we're the best at this, we're the best at that, and you become less aggressive and you become reckless, and you become passive with your training.
I can totally see that, how once you feel like you're good at something, like, oh, we've got this down, you know, it is very easy to become complacent instead of continuing to look forward and, you know, and move ahead and make that next goal or that next big transition.
Yeah, and I put that on there that I fall on the side of not taking risks enough, and you fall on the other side because with like Made for More, I'm not content with where we're at because we have a lot of things we can do and we want to do. But I think I get settled in, like you said, tunnel vision. I'm here right now, and so I have to remind myself, man, you gotta keep moving. So,
well, and I think some of that is I just tend to be very future oriented. Like that is just I'm always thinking about the future, which is why I realize I don't listen to any of the old podcasts because that's behind us now. We just have to move forward. I'm not saying that's right,
I hear you.
but you know that it's just something that I realize, you know, and I don't mind making decisions and trying new things, and it just let's do it.
Yeah, totally get it.
Let's do
I think
something
I
different.
need to get there. I need to get better at that.
I get bored really easy.
Yeah,
That is not a good thing.
I know. So when, as a leader, I want us to ask ourselves, if you're leading a team or again your family, or if you're trying to lead your life better, ask yourself, am I taking any risks with my team? Not on your own. So as a leader, am I taking risks with my team? Not for my team or on the account of my team. Are you taking risks with your team?
And I think that if you think about the teams that are very cohesive, it's the ones that have taken risks together and succeeded or failed, because it's not about what the outcome is, it's about everybody being on that same page, making a plan, having a strategy, and everybody going after something and taking that risk.
That's right. And the next one I said, am I taking risks alone without my team and expecting them to catch up?
And I think that is kind of that like aggressive, you know, mindset that we kind of talked about a few minutes ago. If you're just like bulldozing through and you're doing all of this without your team, then you know that's not going to work.
Yeah, and then you're wondering why they're frustrated, and you're frustrated, and so am I leading out of a place of authority and no one can question what I say? Again, micromanagement there, and a leader saying I have to control everything. Am I yelling and am I tempered? Those are things we got to ask ourselves, because then that means you're leading aggressively and reckless. Am I planning strategically? I would just stop after am I planning? Are you planning anything? And strategically, you're looking at the why, because if you're not, you're too much in the weeds of everything else as a leader. Am I ready, aim, fire, or am I fire, aim, ready? So I think that's where I get, there's the dichotomy. It's ready, aim, fire, but it's don't stare at the freaking target forever. Where some people fire, aim, ready, and I'm going, man, we probably should have thought through that a little bit more. And I think that's where everything wells up in me to go, let us know what call you're making at some point, and let us know what we can do, because it's frustrating to be on a team where it's fire, aim, ready, and no one knows. So yeah, and I think one of the things you want to, I put one of the ways Jocko put it.
Yeah, I love that, because he said, don't get caught up in the emotions, be aggressive with your plans, not so much with your people. And that was the part that I listened to. I listened to it several times, him talking about building up, like working with the business, and it was with like a CEO, and how she was too aggressive, and he actually was like, good job, way to go.
On board with it, right?
Yes, he was like high-fiving her, and then when he sat back and thought about it, he was like, wait a minute, you know, I'm excited to see her be default aggression, but he could see that she needed to have some more realistic goals.
Yep, and I love that. Yeah, he flew home, and then he sat there and went, oh no, I was
wait a
too
minute.
aggressive too. And so that's that whole word of detachment. You got to detach from your emotions, even though you want to be all in and go, man, we got to detach and look at the strategic goal and realize, oh no.
Well, in that story, I really wish I could talk to him, because I would tell him, I really think that she just was feeding his ego, because she was using like all the lingo.
All the things that he says.
Yes, and he was like, oh yeah, like she's got this. She's doing everything the way I would do it.
Yeah.
And then boom. Good job, Jocko, for having some reflection time.
I'm glad. And again, you may disagree with the whole emotion thing, but again, if you're leading out of your emotions, then you're probably hot-tempered. You're probably the only one taking the risks, not leading the team, and you're ultimately aggressive and reckless. But chapter 6, aggressive not reckless. So we're gonna go on to chapter 7.
And I think this one was my favorite chapter. Disciplined, not rigid.
Yep, you gotta be disciplined, but you can't be rigid. And I thought this one was interesting because he said that they're in a firefight in Afghanistan or Ramadi in a bad place, and he heard someone make a call, but the team didn't repeat it. And he goes, okay, hold on. Or they made a call and no one repeated the word, and he goes, he realized in his headset, okay, we don't know what we're doing. We do not know what we're doing. Because then the leader made the call again and no one repeated it. And what I mean by that is he has the standard operating procedures that said, when someone says go left, everyone says go left. So everyone knows, everyone just said go left, but the leader was saying to the right, and no one was like, that's not what we call. So no one repeated it, and Jocko's going, we gotta make the right call. Go back to what you're disciplined in doing. And so all of a sudden, he makes the call and going, let's go back to how we did it. And what did he say? He said, hey, flank left, and everybody goes flank left. So everybody started going to the left. Whatever he says, we're firing to the right, and everybody said fire right. And so he started going, okay, we got away from what we were disciplined in doing we started admitting something, off the whim, and people were lost. Go back to how you were disciplined, but not rigid, right? So we'll get to that in a second.
Right. One of the parts he was talking about, I guess they were like in a training operation with his junior officer. I really wish I paid better attention to these details. But with this like junior officer, and he had all their people were out, and he was following him to like coach him on the way. And then when he was I was standing there, and I was looking at what he saw, and I said like, hey, like what do you see where you are?
Yep.
And he said, why are you here? And the guy says, well, because this is what the standard operating procedure is. I'm supposed to be right here. And Jocko says, well, what do you see? And he's like, well, I can't really see anything. There's a ravine in my way.
Yep.
So Jocko was like, well, how about you move? And so their standard operating procedure is as long as you can see the last seal. And so then they basically, he moved, and then the other one would move, and then he moved, and the other one would move. And so that's what Jocko was saying, is that leader didn't understand that you had to be disciplined but not rigid.
Yep.
That you have to keep moving.
There's some autonomy to make the call.
Yes,
right?
you have to do that. Because if they were in a real situation, that would not have worked. And if he would have just said, well, I'm sorry, I can't go anywhere, this is what the rules say, they would not have been successful, and he would have put all of his men in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And I think that so many times when we're in a situation where especially where you're in a micromanaged situation, you don't have that autonomy, that's what happens, is you just freeze, and then you don't even take ownership of it, because you're like, well, I can't move because it's what the rule book says. And that's kind of what he told him. And so then Jocko's like, dude, you gotta take some ownership.
Yes.
And you have to do what's best, even if that means, going outside of that.
So it makes me think of that one of the chapters when you read in Extreme Ownership, know when to break the rules. And that's one of them, is to go, I'm not breaking the rules, I'm making a call. Like you said, but it goes back to the previous chapter.
Yes.
You gotta be aggressive, but stick with your operating procedures, but go.
Well, he did, and I think that's what's good, was that they explained like 3 other ones, how when he moves, this
Cover
guy
and move.
moves, and everybody, and it's, so he
Simple
kept
cover and move,
everything else the same, except for the last position he was supposed to be in.
Yeah.
Until he could get in another position.
That's right. And again, it's everything
So
we've talked
good.
about all night tonight already, because he said he was so focused. He was target fixated, where he was looking down the barrel of his gun. He's like, this is the only place I can go. Move back and go, what do you see? Well, then make the
Nothing,
call.
I just see the ravine.
Exactly.
And yes, that's not gonna lead you to success.
Nope. And so again, as a leader, like Adina's saying, if you are so focused on the handbook, which I'm not saying break the rules or break the law, but if your team is so micromanaged and you're frustrated because they're not making the call, ask yourself, am I the one making the call all the time, and am I not allowing them to go, hey, you have some freedom to make some adjustments here?
Well, and I also
And do they
think
know that?
if you're a leader and you see your team do something that's maybe out of bounds, to have that conversation, and really don't just automatically assume the worst, that they did the wrong thing, they broke the rules. Ask why. And work through that with them, and then together discuss if maybe that would have the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think some of the things that when you go into the practical world, when you were in the shoe industry, hey, we got to come into work and someone would be like, hey, there's gonna be a customer come in because this lady tried to bring back the shoe she wore for 15 days. It hurt her feet, and your assistant said that she's not taking them back. He's not taking them back. I was like, well, why didn't we take them back? Because they already wore them. I'm like, okay. So I already have someone angry because of a $115 shoe, $130 shoe, whatever. And now they're gonna be upset. Now they're gonna contact the manager, who was me, and they're gonna talk to my manager, and then all he's gonna say is, just exchange your freaking shoes. And then if you get her so pissed off, or him so pissed off, they're gonna say, just refund the money. And so, in my experience, this was the craziest story I've ever had for me. I did what I was told. So this lady comes in right before we close, and I was a sales associate, so this was probably, I was 20, probably 20, this was when I was in high school, so 18, 17, lady comes in, and I'm closing, and she buys an outfit, she tries on this stuff, I'm like, man, I'm ready to go home. I didn't know about leadership, so she's just checking out, and she gives me $200 bills, like a $100 bill, two of them, and I get the little marker out to see if it's fake, and I mark it. Well, the new markers don't work on the old $100 bills, and I didn't know that because why? I wasn't trained. So here I am going, these are fake. And so I just looked at her, and she has her head down, and she's putting stuff in her wallet. And I called my manager, I pressed this button, the manager comes up, and I said, dude, these things are fake. So all of a sudden, he picks up the phone, and he calls our boss, and then before I know it, two guys, no lie, two guys in suits come in, they shut the gate, and she's like, what's going on here? And she was a teacher for the district where we were at. And she was so embarrassed, she was angry, and I was like, I'm just doing what I was told. But no one told me that it was a wrong marker, you can't do that. But again, one of the things where I was so disciplined, I was told to do this, and it marks, you do this. But then I learned that the rest of my employees were like, dude, we just mark them and put them in there because they're not gonna do anything anyways. If it's fake, yes, it's the new ones. But anyways, all this to say, I was
just marked them and put them in there.
I was so to the book that I was trying to catch somebody doing it rather than just going, dude, take care of the freaking customer. And I'm not saying break the rules by taking counterfeit money. It was just something that I really learned because I wasn't trained. Another one is like when someone comes in and says, hey, I didn't get this and this is on my receipt, and someone's like, okay, well, tough. How do I not know that you didn't take it home and hide it? Banana pudding or mashed potatoes, whatever. We laugh, but what's funny is the people on this side are so power hungry that they go, no, I'm not gonna give you that. How much is a freaking bowl of banana pudding or a little cup?
Yeah.
25 cents. Give them the freaking banana pudding and then just go, hey, I just won over a customer, or I did this. So fixing something, being on the customer side, and I'm not saying get ran over, but you gotta teach your team to go, there's times to break the rules, there's times not to be rigid, and you gotta understand that. And it goes back to the chapters that we've already went over, is role play with your team to go, somebody comes in and yells at you, what are you gonna do?
Right, well, and like we've said before, give your team the freedom and the power to make some of those decisions where they don't feel like, oh, I'm not allowed to give a customer an extra banana pudding if they say I forgot to put it on their tray or whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
Because there are some businesses that don't operate like that, and we don't want anyone that we work with to be like that.
No, and I think that if you're in the customer service industry right now, anywhere in this country, man, you're on the customer side and you're trying to do what's best.
And take care of your employees.
Yes,
don't put your employees in that situation.
There's a dichotomy, there's a balance between taking care of the customer and then being way too customer friendly where you lose your your sales and your profit. So what about the principle? What does he say about this?
While discipline equals freedom is a powerful tool for both personal and team development, excessive discipline can stifle free thinking in team leaders and team members. Disciplined, not rigid.
Disciplined, not rigid. I think again the word flexibility that he uses, you have to be flexible. You gotta trust your common sense. This is where you hear me. This is one of my favorite sayings.
Yes, it is.
Trust
yes,
the
it
system.
is.
So again, one of the most frustrating things is you're working with volunteers and someone says, hey, they're not here yet. Okay, well, number one, they're volunteers. Number two, they know what they're doing. What if they run late? What if they're kids? Well, why don't we do it for them? Let them feel the pressure of being under the heat. Like, I gotta get there, I gotta do it. Trust the system. The other part is if you create a system and after the second week you've only used it twice and you're already ready to give up on it, it's too early. You gotta let this system play out. But don't be too rigid, which what you're saying is what I'd agree with, is to go ask the people that are in the system, hey, what do you see wrong? What do you see wrong? It can't just be me. It has to be us as a team going, how is this system gonna work?
Well, that's something, if you, in listening to this book, that, we've talked about kind of how the chapter is, and at the end of the chapter, he relates it to business and talks about how he'll go in with a company with with Echelon Front. And I love that he starts with like the problem, the CEOs, the all the executives. And then every single time he'll say, he goes into like the sales force, or he always talks to the people that they're making the decisions for and about.
Yeah.
And I think that is a key part of it, of why he is successful, or why any leader is successful, is you can't make all of those decisions without talking to the people that are actually making the things happen. The boots on the ground.
I think so when we've done this, so this is what we do for companies too, but leadership wise and personal development, the hardest part is to step into a room with the owners of a business and going, you guys are wrong. Your employees are actually right. And then sitting with, I'll never forget, like a year ago, I sat with a guy that does marketing, and he's like, hey man, I just need a budget. I was like, what do you mean you need a budget? He goes, I just don't have the freedom to do the budget because they're all the overhead is, they want to have their hands on what I'm doing. And I've been asking for a budget for years. So I went back to the table with the owners and I said, hey, this guy has a good point and he's trying to plan out for the year and we don't have a budget. Well, this, and this. And I go, okay. So we didn't get a budget, but then there was a problem that came up and I said, hey, remember when he asked for a budget? This is why. And then we realized extreme ownership. I got to respond. I got to take ownership that I didn't let him have a budget and they had to make a change. And so we're still working on a budget with that team, but that's what we do, is you got to go to the top, but then you go to the people that are actually serving the mashed potatoes, that are serving, they're helping people with the shoes or whatever it is, and going, how do you feel? What's going on? Well, they're too controlling, or hey, we never see them. So anyways, trust the system. But the other part that I think this whole chapter, like you said, is really good, because I said discipline with common sense and autonomy for our team and leaders to bring solutions and thoughts to the table. So discipline comes with common sense and autonomy, but if you don't trust your team as well,
trust your team, trust the system.
Yeah, because if you don't trust the system, your team goes, you don't trust me, and if you don't trust them, they don't want to work for you. So,
well, and it's not really a system if you keep like picking up the pieces every time. You never know how the system works.
It's called manipulation.
It's called manipulation.
Yeah, you're picking up the pieces and manipulating it to work however you want. So it's not influence. So weird how all this falls together. Chapter 8, hold people, here we go. Here we go. Hold people accountable, but don't hold their hands. And I'm just gonna tell you this, you're gonna think that Jocko says he likes accountability. I'm just telling you, read through the entire chapter before you make an assumption.
Right, because what he's saying is I think kind of what you just said is, you can't go in and do everything for them if they're failing.
Yep.
Because then they don't feel that pressure. So instead of doing it for them, you're going to walk alongside them. Yeah, 100%.
And so the way it unfolds with Jocko is they're in Ramadi. They're about to go roll out and take down a target. And he says, he patted somebody on the back and the piece was missing on their back. He said, hey man, where's your back plate? He said, oh, it's just too heavy and it makes me lighter. And he goes, oh, okay. He goes, well, I need you to go get it. He goes, well, should I go get it and tell everybody else to put it on? He goes, what do you mean everybody else? He goes, well, none of us use it anymore. So Jocko, 1, knew that success had gotten to their head. 2, that was, what if they get shot in the back, is what he told them. But then instead of getting angry, like these previous chapters, he said, okay, everybody gather around. Let me tell you the why. Let's say you look right and they come left and they shoot you in the back. I know you want to be quick and you don't want that plate there, but that plate's going to protect your life. So instead of so much of holding their hand, he went back to what we're saying, is he started with the why. So if you're trying to get your team to take ownership in, this is funny. Let me tell you this. I'm with the client and he goes, I don't want black trash bags being used, I want gray. And he used colorful words. How effing hard is it to go use gray, not black? Use gray, not black. So I said, okay, what's the reasoning? And he gave me the reason. I said, does your team know that? And he got quiet. I said, tell your team the why. Because the why is black trash bags have product in it. Gray don't. So if they pick up the black and it has product in it, they throw it in the trash, we just lost product. Don't use black. Just hide those. And he goes, true. I said, but does your team know that? Well, I thought they did. I said, no. Ownership says go back and tell them the why. And so again, it's going back to, you start with why. Instead of getting upset, he didn't go to each guy. He brought the team together and said, hey, let me explain to you why. And he did not get upset. And again, it goes back to the things that we've talked about. He explained the why, and he had them help hold themselves accountable. And he just says this is far more effective.
Well, and he talks about too in this how you want the accountability to be intrinsic, and that's what a leader does, is it builds that accountability where you feel the pressure to hold yourself accountable and to have that extreme ownership, and it's not something that's an external force.
Yeah, because you're
which is why Jocko didn't say, now I need you to go make sure that your buddy here has his thing in every single day.
Because he's not going to make you do it. He's just telling you what's going to happen is when you come back on that stretcher and you're shot in the back, I've explained the why. So the principle says this: accountability is an important tool that leaders must utilize. However, it should not be the primary tool. It must be balanced with other leadership tools, such as making sure that people understand the why, empowering subordinates, and trusting they will do the right thing without direct oversight, because they fully understand the importance of things of doing so. So anyways, if you don't understand the why, if your team doesn't understand the why, then it's not going to happen. You gotta understand the why. You gotta teach them why you use black paper or trash cans, trash bags instead of gray. I'm trying to think of other things of the why. But anyways, if you're monitoring, and this is what you said, you're monitoring an employee because they keep
because you're keeping one employee accountable. What happens when it's 4 employees?
Or 5 or 8, and guess what the leader's doing? He's just busy keeping people accountable, and they don't understand the why, and then you're upset because you're upset with your team, then you fire them, and you bring a new person in, you're doing the same thing over and over again because you're keeping them accountable. That's not accountability.
Right, and you're not focused on what's coming up
Strategic
for your
plan.
team.
Yep.
So this is like where he connects the ownership together.
Yeah, so each employee has to know the why, and they take ownership of it. So if we're on a team and I take ownership of my part, it helps you because I'm keeping you safe. You do the same. Tiana, my wife, we're all same. It's the 300 shields. I'm going to hold my shield up, not for me, but for you. And the same thing goes because I'm taking ownership of the team mentality, not of myself. And this also goes along with inspect what you expect. I know we've said that before. But if you're expecting something, you better go inspect it. Because again, the black trash bags and gray trash bags, I asked that this week. I said, hey, how's that been going? It's been going good. Why? Because we've inspected it. It's not just expected. We've inspected it, and we told them the why. So as he ends the chapter, I feel like we need to hear this. Will you read that last part?
And that is where balance must be found. Use accountability as a tool when needed, but do not rely on it as the sole means of enforcement. A reliance on heavy accountability consumes the time and focus of the leader and inhibits trust, growth, and development of the subordinates. Instead, balance accountability with educating the team and empowering its members to maintain standards even without direct oversight from the top. This is the hallmark of the highest performing teams that dominate.
Yep. So if I'm your coach and I have to tell you to practice or I have to tell you to do this, then hey, I don't need you on my team because you're not holding the weight. So yeah, I mean those 4 chapters were pretty legit. In other words, at the end of this chapter, lead with the why, give the team ownership, and inspect what you expect. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think those 4 chapters are really good. I think we have one more section left. I think that's what it is. Let me check. So I was going to tell people to go ahead and get ready for the next book, which is probably in a month. I mean, maybe not a month.
So what are we going to do next then?
I think we're going to do start with Why by Simon Sinek, which this whole year has been Jocko and Simon Sinek books. But really, I mean, these books have been staples to what we do individually, I think, and we haven't connected them all. But the Start With Why, Tiana also has a workbook. But so we did what? Leaders Eat Last, Extreme Ownership. Well, we did throw in the habits, Atomic Habits.
Yes.
And then we went back to
The
Jocko book,
Yeah,
and
back
then
to
Simon
Simon.
Sinek. And hey, they're amazing. So
Yeah,
anyway,
so good.
but that's later. The only reason I said that is because this last chapter he talks a lot about why, and Etienne already has it linked on our books page. Man, that books page looks legit.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Seriously, that is
So
awesome.
good.
And I don't know how. I mean, I keep going back to these books that she's scrolling through them like.
Go back, go-
Leading on Empty. I know it's a spiritual book, but I think it would be.
That was a good book.
Burnout one's good.
What's that one?
Burnout.
That's a really good
We
book
don't need to
too.
talk about burnout. Hey, there was a good question though at one point. Is it burnout or boredom? Are you bored or you just burn out? So, anyways, we're gonna have to get to our action steps for tonight.
I need to read that
I
one.
had that one.
With
That
the
just takes
website?
forever.
You did take a really long
Yes,
time to read
because
that.
it was so much to.
Yeah, that's what you were
talked
saying.
in
I
such
remember
a
that.
Crazy, just educational
Which one are you
language.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
What's his name?
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. Crazy. He just wrote it. So,
Yeah.
action steps. Did you write this one?
Yeah.
That's good. I think
Yeah.
you have to evaluate. I didn't write one, so that's what I'm saying. I think as individuals, as leaders, as parents, whoever, we got to evaluate where in your life are you being passive and how can you practice to be default aggressive. And when I say aggressive, remember, it's not yelling, it's not hot tempered, it's not any of that. It's going, how can I get better at making a call?
Right. Well, and where in my life do I need to see some forward motion?
Yes.
Where do I need to say I see this in my life and it's
Yeah.
not going the way I want it to,
Yeah.
or I'm stagnant and I'm gonna move ahead.
Yeah. So right now, I think though, when people listen to this earlier, when we were talking about chapter 5, I think when people hear comfort, they know in their life where their comfort, right? So Etiana wrote that down.
For sure.
So I'm saying now on the other side of it, where are you being comfortable?
Yes.
You need to move.
Where are you comfortable?
Let's just leave it at that. Where are you comfortable and where you need to move? So yeah, great section of the book. That's a good section. I do have a cool story.
Tell
for
me.
you guys. I think I told you. Last Friday, Katy Perry came into the slab at Burnett Road. Yeah, Katy Perry and Orlando Bloom and their son or their baby with their bodyguard. No one recognized them because they had a mask, but Chip. Oh, shout out to Chip. The GM there recognized them, and he went straight to his team. And I love this. He said, "Do not bother them. Treat them as a regular customer, but don't let anybody bother them. Don't go over there asking for autographs. Just let them." He said he went to the corner booth or seat and sat down. And this was her. I mean, she's from Texas, but this is the first time she's had Austin barbecue. And he said they must have looked up barbecue places close to where they were. Came straight to Slab. Orlando Bloom went up to the bar, bought two. I mean, he kept he said, "Can I have your name?" And he put Orlando Bloom. And so he bought a couple of drinks. They had a bodyguard with him. They had the baby. Chip said he waved at the baby, but Chip was there. He was excited because this week when I was with the Slab leaders, I just said, "Hey, what was your highlight of the week?" And he said it was cool to see those people in here. I think it's because they're having not only ACL, but they're having American Idol auditions, and so she was here. So that's cool. I don't know if you'll ever
awesome.
listen to this, but Katy Perry, thanks for going into Slab on the Burnett Road location. And Chip, you'll never listen to this, I doubt you will, but shout out to you and your team at the Burnett location.
Good job, Chip.
Yeah, good guy. And I have to give this guy a shout out for the second week in a row. Go to, maybe I'll post it on the Instagram page. It'll be posted on the Instagram page. And I'll do a post with it because of the sign that goes with it. Says, "The world is yours." And it's meant to be for kids. Like, the world is yours. This girl's holding balloons. But Adams, you know.
Pro wired.
Ricky, yeah, well,
Right?
I was
Are we
going to call
not-
him Ricky Bobby.
Ricky
His
Bobby.
first name and last name. But Adam Adams at ProWiredElectric.com in Liberty Hill has done an amazing job with this mural. So I'm gonna go post it. So by the time you listen to this, just go to our Instagram page and there's a picture of a balloon, some balloons. Or no, it's not balloons. It's a blimp,
Mhm.
and it's a Scarface blimp. And he did an amazing job with electrical. And he's a new business that we're helping, that we're not partnering with, but helping. I say partnering, same thing. And just go give him a shout out, man. He's done a great job. He did work here. I'm sure you guys need work in your home. Everybody needs electrical work. Adam's your man. So Adam, great job.
And he does listen to the podcast.
He does.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
yeah, he asks and he says certain things, and I love that he listens. He's given a review, like unlike some people, but no one here. Did you give one?
Did I
Or
give
you
one?
try? No,
No.
I don't think you
No.
freaking did.
I tried.
Anyways,
Try is a weak word.
Well, I was like, I got it, and I was
Yes.
like, I don't know how to
So,
do this because I'm on the
anyways,
episode.
episode 40 is wrapping up. Guys, we are working on some new merch. We haven't pulled the trigger yet, but we're working on that. Etiana is. I don't want to say I'm trying new things with Made for More because I'm just in a place where I need to do better. But yeah, visit our website, madeformoreconsulting.com. You can see our podcast there. Follow our socials, wallpapers, things like that. And what else am I forgetting?
Close.
What?
Said close.
Wrap it up.
Mm-hmm.
They want to wrap it up.
Wrap
You
it
guys
up.
are
I'll take it.
whatever. Guys, remember, you exist for more. You're here to offer more. Don't ever give up. Every single one of us is made for more. Later.
Yay.
Peace.
That was a really good episode.
Bye, YouTube.
See you later, guys. I hope you guys have a great night. Go check out our Instagram. Peace.
Love having it.
Peace in the Middle East.